Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. And coming up on the show, I'm going to be joined by our Chicago Bears host, Harrison Graham of Bears Now, doing a fantastic job covering every single detail of what the Bears do well, what they don't do well, just crushing it on his channel. And so all year long, we've been doing these joint previews because I think here at Chat Sports, we have so many talented people who cover their teams so well. And I'm going to offer insight on the Niners sideline. Harrison's going to do that on the Bears sideline. And you're going to come away from this video by the end of it being a more informed fan going into this huge matchup between San Francisco and Chicago on Sunday Night Football. So that preview is coming up. If you want the Niners to win, number one seed still in play for San Francisco. I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. And with that, let's preview this Niners-Bears tilt right now.
All right, we're back with another joint preview, and it's a big one. I'm Harrison Graham from Bears Now. That is Chase Sr. from the 49ers Report. For you Bears fans that remember, Chase also covers our Eagles show, Eagles Now, and so running it back, but with a different team and perhaps bigger stakes this time around, Chase, as both teams are playing for a lot. Both teams clinched a playoff berth last week, but San Francisco, if they were able to win their final two games, would get the number one seed in the NFC. Chicago, with just one win, would guarantee at least the number two seed. So there's still a lot on the line this Sunday night in the Bay Area between these two ball clubs.
Yeah, I know a lot of people on Bears Now are going to say, wait, isn't this the same guy who was doing that Eagles-Bears preview going into Black Friday? A lot of Niner fans are also going to say the same. Yes, myself and Harrison, producer Colin, we're very busy here at Chat Sports. But Harrison, all jokes aside, can't wait for this game. I think this is a terrific matchup on both sidelines. This Chicago team has been very hot since starting off 0-2. They're 11-2 on the year. And this Niners team right now is humming. They've won 5 games in a row. That's tied for the third longest winning streak in the National Football League. And they are the first team in NFL history, Harrison, we were talking about this out in the office, to score 80-plus points over 2 games and not punt in either of those 2 games. The 49ers have not punted since November 30th. So Kyle Shanahan, fantastic offensive mind. And as John Middlecoff said a couple of weeks ago, and it really rings true, Ben Johnson is kind of like the Midwest Kyle Shanahan. A lot of dynamic and creative passing concepts, but the foundation of his offense, like Kyle's, is running the football. So 2 offenses that are very similar, very explosive, and that just goes to show you why I think this is a fantastic matchup.
Yeah, I think 2 of the better coaching jobs this year, too, for both these staffs. I mean, the Bears have had a ton of defensive injuries. The Niners have just had a ton of injuries, period, and both these teams just keep plugging away. But to your point of the offensive philosophies, I mean, both these teams want to run the football, lean on their offensive lines, which I think the Bears actually are better in both those areas with their offensive line and running the football, and set up explosive play action passing game off of it. I mean, I think that's the bread and butter of both of these offenses. And, you know, to the Niners, Chase, we can start there. Christian McCaffrey has obviously been super productive this year, but the efficiency hasn't been great running the football, but he just had his best game of the year running the ball, averaged about 6 yards per carry against the Indianapolis Colts, whereas he was sitting at 3.6 going in. He's obviously been super effective as a receiving back this year, but if you're the Niners, if you can get him going 4, 5, 6 yards a run on the ground, that only opens everything else up even more because the passing game has obviously been fantastic.
Christian McCaffrey is in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. What he's done in the run game and the receiving game this season really is incredible. You look at the rushing stats on your screen, 280 carries, more than 1,000 yards, but to Harrison's point, the big number there, only 3.7 yards per carry. Now, he still has 9 rushing touchdowns, and then through the air, there's a chance that he is in rarefied air, having another season of 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. He's slowed down a little bit as far as the receptions and the overall receiving yards, but still 92 catches this season 849 yards, and then 7 more touchdowns through the air. He scored 2 through the air against the Indianapolis Colts, and his dad was an All-Pro and a Super Bowl champion, playing alongside John Elway under Mike Shanahan for the Denver Broncos in the late 90s. And with CMC, you see such pristine route running and footwork. And I will say, the running efficiency this season really hasn't been there. There's been a lot of conversations. Is it because McCaffrey's slowing down? He's trending toward being washed? I don't think that's the case. I think mostly it's been a scheme and offensive line issue. Since the return of George Kittle, the run game has been more efficient. Spencer Burford has played pretty well at left guard. He was injured. Ben Barch was injured earlier this year. So they were going by committee early in the season at that left guard spot. They've stabilized that. They've gone more power and inside zone compared to outside zone. And I thought his running performance as far as real estate and running lanes was the best of the season against Indy. And so hopefully that is a sign of things to come for this Niners offense, because when they can run it like that, the pass game, it's been humming of late, and Brock Purdy is playing tremendous football. He threw 5 touchdowns against the Colts on Monday Night Football. It just makes this offense so much more balanced and explosive and harder to defend if they can be better in running the football, which the signs have been there of late.
Yeah, I thought Ben Johnson made an interesting but true comment when asked to kind of evaluate Kyle Shanahan's offense. And the first thing he said was, well, they're one of those teams that even if you're not preparing for them, you kind of want to throw on their tape every once in a while just to see what they're doing. Yep. That's obviously a sign of mutual respect there for Shanny. But also he kind of glorified the passing game but called it unique because their 2 main weapons are a running back and a tight end, and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. Now, obviously, Juwan Jennings has been coming on. He's been playing pretty well, but it's had to be those 2 guys because obviously Brandon Ayuk hasn't been in the picture. Ricky Pearsall's been in and out of the lineup. He's still banged up, probably won't play in this football game. We'll see about Kittle. We're filming this, just so everybody knows, Wednesday around lunchtime, so technically the first injury report hasn't dropped as we're filming this, so keep that in mind based on when you're watching this. But injuries for both teams, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the Bears. But what Shanahan has done to kind of, I don't want to say evolve the offense, but in a way he kind of has. He's always been an outside zone guy. To your point, they're running more power. McCaffrey, I think, later in his career has become a more physical back. So even if he's lost a half a step, he can really lower that shoulder and get a couple extra yards. So I've been really impressed. You could argue the winner of this game, like, is that the coach of the year? I mean, I know Mike Vrabel's in the conversation. Liam Cohen's done a hell of a job. I'd say those 2, along with these 2 head coaches, Ben Johnson and Kyle Shanahan, that feels like the core 4 to me. I mean, they've all been fantastic.
I love how Shanahan has kind of adapted and evolved the offense, and then with that coincides the play of Brock Purdy. And back in 2023, when Purdy had one of the more efficient seasons that we've seen in recent memory, everybody tried to say when he was top 5 in MVP voting, oh, it's because of the star-studded cast. McCaffrey won Offensive Player of the Year. You had George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk all go over 1,000 all-purpose yards, and everybody wanted to say Purdy was carried by all of the skill players in Kyle Shanahan. Well, this year, him and Mac Jones. Ricky Pearsall's been out. George Kittle's missed a lot of time. And of late, the top weapons for Purdy, Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne, and George Kittle, with Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, but it's not like the run game has been all that explosive. Going into Monday night, Christian McCaffrey had 1 carry of 20-plus yards all season. So I think Purdy's done a great job of elevating the people around him and helping to maximize some of the playmakers. This George Kittle injury really looms large for San Francisco. It's not just him as a pass catcher. He's an excellent blocker. He can pick up yards after the catch. Great red zone target. I still think he's the best tight end in all of football because of what he does from a multidimensional standpoint. And since his return, I alluded to it earlier, the run game has been a lot more efficient. But Kittle himself has been on a straight-up tear of late. Over his last 6 games, this sample size is pretty nutty. 40 catches, 499 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So if the Niners are without him in this game, grew up a Bears fan, of course, too.
Yeah, you know,
it really impacts what they want to do on offense.
You know he wants to play in
No
this.
doubt.
I think he's missed a game against the Bears before, if I'm remembering correctly. So you know he wants to be out there. Stakes are high. It's against his childhood team
Maybe that Trey Lance game when the Bears won a few years ago.
That monsoon.
Yeah.
Never forget that one. One of only a handful of Matt Eberflus wins. More than a handful, but felt like a handful. How things have changed, at least for one franchise. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think on the Bears side, obviously, I mentioned it earlier. We'll see as the week progresses. Ben Johnson is optimistic that Rome Odunze returns at some point. I don't think we'll see him in this game. We'll see about Luther Burden. But, last week and really the last couple of weeks, DJ Moore has kind of re-entered the fray. I don't want to say he's been a lost man this year in this offense, but he's kind of just been a secondary playmaker in the last 2 weeks. I believe he's got like 160 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Obviously caught that bomb from Caleb Williams in overtime, just an iconic moment in the history of the Chicago Bears. He and Caleb seem to be kind of vibing all of a sudden, which there's been questions around that relationship over the past year and a half. I think you can put those to rest at this point. And there's been a lot of questions about DJ's future, but I think right here and right now, he's a guy you want to rely on. He's a guy you need to rely on, because even if Rome comes back, that stress fracture is probably not getting fully healed until he has a procedure in the offseason. I think DJ Moore becomes a guy that this Bears offense leans on, and that Robert Saleh is really going to have to key in on to slow down this Sunday night.
And what I like with what Ben Johnson has done with him, not just being used as a gadget guy, he's being used in a couple of different ways. And I'll say this, I tweeted it out the following day. I can't still stop watching that Caleb Williams throw to DJ Moore to win the game against Green Bay, and then DJ Moore saying F Green Bay after the game. I mean, the sequencing of that play, what led to it, the craziness of the comeback, having like a 0.4% chance of winning, and then the actual throw from Caleb to DJ. I watched it so many times I almost needed a new pair of pants, and I didn't have any rooting interest in that game, and I know a lot of Bears fans are with me, but he is really a dynamic weapon, DJ Moore, and I'm glad to see that a great offensive mind, because this is the job of a great offensive coach, is putting a player like that who's so skilled in a position to succeed.
Yeah, and there's been questions before the last couple of weeks, like, are they fully utilizing DJ's skill set properly? Like, what's the issue? And, it's almost like Rome being out is just kind of freed him up. It's like, okay, yeah, let's dial up a play late in the practice week, a deep post and a 13 personnel look, and if we get the right look, we'll run it. And, it was perfect. I mean, it's a career-defining throw at this point for Caleb Williams. It's definitely the highlight of DJ Moore's season, and just the symbolism of beating that team in that way to get over the hump, to set yourself up to win this division. Like, it just feels like if this Bears team does something special this year, like, that's going to be the moment we kind of remember. Like, that's when it really took off. Like, obviously you lose that game, you're still 10-5, your season's not over, but like, that was just a monumental moment for this franchise moving forward. So that was obviously special. Caleb Williams has been trending up recently. We could talk about him a little bit more in a moment, but we want you guys to weigh in on the show. Who do you guys got? San Francisco, slight favorite. We got to talk about the rest advantage Chicago has as well, so stay tuned for that. CHI for the Bears, SF for the 49ers. Let us know who you guys think wins this game. Quick word from our sponsor. Shout out to PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports app out there. It is the holiday season, the best time of year for sports, bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once, and while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right. That is PrizePicks. Awesome new feature alert. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. The way you play PrizePicks is simple. You pick 2 or more players, up to 6, in a single lineup, and take more or less on their stat projections. We're talking passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, points, rebounds, assists in basketball. It doesn't matter the sport. It is available for you. A little 3-player lineup just for this game, and you can obviously use other players from other games. I got Caleb Williams more on his passing yards. He's been trending up in recent weeks. Christian McCaffrey, I think he continues to score touchdowns. He'll have at least one. I took more than half. And then I'll take the demon play for Colston Loveland. I think he finds the end zone as well. $20 lineup to win $85. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, let's talk about the Bears quarterback, and then I want to get into this kind of rest advantage situation because I think it's pretty unique for this late in the season, especially for the home team being at the disadvantage. But Caleb Williams, Chase, he's definitely improved a lot this year. The big, national storyline was, well, the completion percentage. And it's certainly it's something that in future years needs to improve, right? I mean, 58% is not where you want to live. But I've said this all year. A couple of things with Caleb. One, he's extremely clutch. He leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks. When the game is hanging in the balance, he's pretty much delivered all year. Even in the game at Lambeau where he threw the pick in the end zone, he made 3 or 4 big plays to get him into position, and then Keyshawn Nixon makes a nice play. He didn't make his best throw there, but he's been fantastic in the clutch, and they generate a lot of explosives, Chase. So I can live with the guy missing some throws sometimes if A, he elevates in the big moments, B, he generates explosives, and C, he does not turn the ball over that much. He has 7 turnovers this year and 26 total touchdowns. So he makes a lot of big plays. We could talk completion percentage down the road. This is a quarterback who this team believes in. He's a very self-confident individual. I think he makes enough big-time plays that this team could win a game like this and potentially go on a playoff run.
This is so interesting to me because I put up the graphic that producer Cullen had popped up about the completion percentage between Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy. You have Caleb who's sub 60, then you have Purdy who's at 69%. And a lot of the replies that I got on my social media pages, how is this sustainable? How is Caleb Williams completing less than 58% of his passes? And I am a big fan of completion percentage. I do think that it matters because it's not always sustainable to play that way when your quarterback is missing a lot of throws. This is a big reason why I didn't like Anthony Richardson coming out of college because he was sub 55%. This has been my big knock on a guy like Cam Newton because he was around 50% for his entire career. And an offense is hard to sustain as far as consistency when your quarterback is not completing a high rate of throws. All that being said, it has worked with Caleb Williams. And I've watched a lot of Bears football this year. They've been on national TV. I think they're a really interesting team. They're one of my favorite picks to go from worst to first to win a division this season, and looks like that's going to happen. And it works because he is explosive. Now, the completion rate is down because I think there's some throwaways sprinkled in. I do think that he will take chances with the ball. He's very aggressive. He will rely on his arm, whether it's in structure or out of structure, to try to attempt throws that a lot of other quarterbacks won't try to attempt because he believes that he can find a keyhole with those throws, and they will fall incomplete. And so I do think context is important here. I do think that at times he does miss some easy passes. I think that he can get better over time as far as finding ways to layer throws, which Purdy, I think, does as good as anybody across the NFL. But with Caleb, it does work, especially when you pair it with this really explosive and dynamic running game.
One more piece of context I'll add, and then we'll talk about this rest discrepancy. Caleb Williams, the Bears lead the NFL in yards in drops. I don't know how that stat is calculated in terms of does Yak get calculated into that? For example, there was a play last week, Olamide Zaccheaus on a deep dig. If he catches it, he's still running. I mean, I don't know if they estimate how many yards he's going to get or if it's just at the catch point.
He rifled that throw, too.
But it's over 350 yards in drops this year. So, if half of those are caught, is he at 61% and 3,600? All these things go into play. I don't know every team has drops, but they are number one in dropped yardage. So, I do think there is extra context there as well. But, yeah, I mean, you're not turning the ball over. You're generating explosives. And obviously the other part of this is when you can run the ball as efficiently as the Bears do, you can afford misses because you're not going to be living in third and long very often. Okay, let's talk about the rest disadvantage the home team has. This is a very unique situation, Chase. Not just the Saturday night to Monday night angle, but it's where they're traveling from. The 49ers played in Indianapolis on Monday night, which is 2 hours from Chicago. I mean, it's down the road. And so it's basically the same flight back to the Bay Area. They don't get home until, let's call it, between 3 and 5 a.m. West Coast time on Tuesday morning. The Bears, that game's late into the night, overtime, but you're at home by 1 o'clock in the morning in your own bed. You're waking up in your own bed in Chicago, extra couple of days to prepare. I think even though this game's in the Bay Area, you factor in Kittle getting banged up, I think the Bears have a pretty unique opportunity to play in a tough road environment against a tough team where, yeah, the crowd part of it, but the rest advantage should be pretty clearly in Chicago, even though they also have a cross-country flight. They'll be flying at normal hours. I mean, they'll fly like Saturday afternoon or whatever, and they'll land around dinner time in the Bay Area. So this is a pretty unique situation considering when these teams played and where they're each flying from to play this game.
Yeah, simply put, Bears play on Saturday at home. Niners play on the road on Monday Night Football. And so Ben Johnson and his coaching staff have a little bit of an edge on Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff. And it's also Christmas week. So I imagine Shanahan, coaching staff, the players really not seeing a lot of their families during this Christmas week matchup. And I imagine there's also a lot of caffeinated drinks, energy drinks, Adderall, and coffee going through that Niners practice facility as well in trying to prepare for this game. And the thing is, too, Ben Johnson is so smart. He's so strategical. It reminds me of that Black Friday game with that tweet from Greg Olsen where he's like, the Bears in this fourth quarter are going with the wind right now. Ben Johnson prepared for this hours ago, whereas the Eagles offense, they were going against the wind. And that was decided prior to the game and with the coin toss. And so you give a good coaching staff like this a few extra days to prepare. It's also an unfamiliar opponent for the Niners. Yeah, it's a little bit of an edge for Chicago. Now, of course, San Francisco is playing at home in this game. They've had a lot of success against Chicago at Levi's Stadium. That included a victory last year when the Niners weren't nearly as good. Obviously, the Bears weren't either. They were still on their, second coach at the time.
That was the first, that was Thomas Brown's going to save us.
Coming out of the bye
No, he's
week.
not.
Yeah, no, he's not. And so, yeah, I think that's an interesting storyline in this game that could play a role. Could play a role for sure.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. And obviously, we won't spend too much time on the defense. Just a couple quick thoughts. I think both these coordinators, considering the injuries, the personnel, have done a pretty good job. I'd say especially Robert Saleh. I mean, you lose Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Michael Williams. That's a lot to overcome. The Bears on paper never had a great defensive line to work with, but did lose a couple of players there, Dio Odengbo and Shamar Turner. And what Dennis Allen's been able to do is create the takeaways. They lead the NFL in takeaways and interceptions, and that's without a great pass rush. So the Bears' mantra, I think, down the stretch is pretty simple. Bend, don't break, get timely takeaways. They're going to give up yards. They're going to give up some points, but if you can force more field goals than touchdowns, and if this offense continues to play how it is, that's how they're going to win football games. And you could speak to it, but what Robert Saleh has done with, practice squad guys, signing a guy like Cleveland Ferrell off the street to be productive. I mean, there's a reason he's getting looks to potentially be a head coach once again.
No doubt about it. And I think both of these defensive coordinators have a track record of being very successful as DCs. What Dennis Allen did, especially against Tom Brady with the Saints, not a head coach, really good DC. And the thing with the Bears, they're so opportunistic. The thing with the Niners, they don't generate a lot of giveaways. And so that's what they need to do paired with this offense to really maximize themselves as a football team this year because they are so talent and depth bereft on defense. And I know a lot of people watched that Monday Night Football game. A lot of people had eyes on it because Phillip Rivers was playing, right? And the Niners are a fun team to watch on offense, led by Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. The first two drives, there's no doubt, the Niners defense got cooked. And on the first two drives, they gave up 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the final 7 drives of the game, San Francisco did make some good in-game adjustments, gave up 140 yards, had a pick 6, had a sack fumble, which led to a big loss. The week prior, the Niners gave up nearly 7 yards per carry to one of the worst offenses in the NFL and the Titans. But on Monday night, they shut down Jonathan Taylor, holding him to 16 carries, 46 yards, and 2.9 yards per carry. And so that's a storyline in this game. The Niners are going to have to be good against the run. If they're not, it could be a long night because then they lose control of the clock in the ball game. The other thing that really worries me for the Niners, and I don't know if this can be fixed, they can't generate pressure on the quarterback. I mean, that's really been the case all year. That's what happens when you lose Bosa, Michael Williams. and a player like Fred Warner. And so there's a lot of pressure on this front to try to get to the quarterback, because if they can't, Caleb can have a field day.
Yeah, it's similar with the Bears. I mean, Montez Sweat's got 9.5 sacks, but, even he'll disappear at times. So, I think they're very similar in that regard. Neither team gets great pressure. All right, that's where we'll wrap it. He's Chase Sr., the 49ers Report. I am Harrison Graham, Chicago Bears Now. Should be a fun one on Sunday Night Football. We'll both be live on our respective channels, so subscribe and join us for that, and we'll see you soon.